morning and welcome to First Financial Biz Beat, presented by the Business Courier. I'm Kyla Woods. Well, when the pandemic hit back in March, banks worried about huge losses. And a funny thing happened on the way to those losses. They actually didn't happen. And that has led to a huge sigh of relief because they're on the safe side for now. First Financial Bank CEO Archie Brown talked with Courier reporter Steve Watkins about how banks have been able to stave off pandemic defaults.
Thanks, and thanks for being here, Archie.
Hey, Steve, it's great to be with you today.
So let's look at how much of a problem loan losses have been to this point for First Financial. What have you guys seen?
Steve, this year to date, loan losses have been pretty minimal. I would even say lower than last year, or losses, I guess, compared to any good economic period, losses have been as low, if not lower.
Yeah, that's fantastic and kind of surprising, I would think, at least compared to expectations 6 or 7 months ago. Why do you think they haven't been nearly as bad as people feared?
Yeah, I think there are a few factors. Going into the pandemic, we all had our worst fears about where losses might be, but I think it's a combination of, one, just the resiliency of businesses, their ability to adapt and find a way to make things work. The stimulus, just incredible amount of stimulus has come into the system and made a difference in so many, not just consumers, but also businesses, things like the PPP program. And then we've been doing a lot of, outreach to borrowers early on and providing various payment relief programs. It's the combination of all those things I think have come together to really allow businesses to navigate this so far.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So what have you guys done to protect yourselves going forward if losses do, in fact, end up rising a lot more than they have so far?
Well, again, it starts with our borrowers and just being very close to them and, understanding how to provide solutions to help them to help minimize losses. But also, we've been setting aside significant amount of dollars into loan loss reserves and building that reserve in anticipation of future credit losses. We've built additional capital, retained more capital, all just to make sure that our company is, can weather any storms that may come down the pike.
Yeah, that sounds good. And in terms of the losses that you would expect, what are you guys anticipating going forward? Do you think loan losses will, in fact, get worse as we head into next year?
Yes. Again, early on in the pandemic, Steve, we were very worried about how significant they could be. Could they be as much as what we saw in the great financial crisis of 2008, 2009? But I think as time's moved on, we feel a lot better than we did in the spring. So we would say losses are going to be elevated from where they are. Don't really know how much yet, but they'll be probably sometime in the middle part of 2021 and maybe back half of 2021, we'll start to see losses peak and maybe trail into 2022.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye out for that. And how do you think both First Financial and the banking industry as a whole are positioned to handle the losses that might rise as we head into next year?
Yeah, the banking system, Steve, is the healthiest it's ever been. We had significant profits over the last 10 years. Capital ratios for all banks have built significantly from where they were 10 years ago. Again, we've also been able to prop our loan loss reserves higher for impending or potential losses. And banks have been doing other things to raise subordinated debt, just provide other sources of capital into the system to be ready to withstand. I would also say that the economy was stronger than ever coming into this, and businesses were performing better than ever. So everybody was very healthy. All businesses, banking industry, everybody was healthy coming into this crisis, which helps.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes a big difference. So we'll see what happens. But thanks for being here, Archie. I really appreciate it. And back to you.
Thanks for having me.
And while waiting for that vaccine, Kroger is rolling out a plan to offer rapid coronavirus antibody testing. Kroger says testing will likely be available in every pharmacy and clinic by the end of the month. The test will check for 2 different antibodies, ones you develop right after getting the virus and those you build up weeks later.
The antibody testing is just the test that tells you if you've already had COVID or already had the virus and cleared it and may have the appropriate immune response. There were a lot of folks that came through the offices and through our testing centers that we could not test because they were young, they were otherwise healthy. This would be a good opportunity to find out if they really truly had it at that time or not.
Kroger says the $25 test will have results before you finish shopping. It was an historic election night here in the tri-state, especially in the courts, where there will be a whole bunch of new Democrat judges promising real justice reform. Courier reporter Chris Wetterick talked about that with editor Rob Dahmeyer.
Chris, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So obviously there's the big national election that everybody in the world is talking about and will continue to talk about, but we are local. We focus on local issues and local races, and that's what we want to talk about this morning. Let's talk, though, first about the Shabbat-Schroeder race. You had a cover story recently that talked about how not just Hamilton County, but just a lot of local Republican candidates were in trouble. But what did that Shabbat-Schroeder race, what did the result tell you?
Well, it was a really interesting race. Going into the race, we thought Kate Schroeder would run a very strong race. And what ended up happening is she kind of ran behind Aftab Pureval, who was the 2018 Democratic nominee against Steve Shabbat. Shabbat ended up winning this district by double the percentage that he did in about double in 2018, almost 8 points. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I mean, one of the things that we thought might happen and kept hearing might happen is that suburban people would be angry at President Trump and they would potentially take it out on down ballot Republicans like Steve Shabbat. That did not happen. What happened in this race was Shabbat did better in Warren County and did better in the portion of Hamilton County that is in the district than he did 2 years ago. So the congressman has kind of proven to be a very resilient political figure in this town. This will be his 25th and 26th year in Congress once he takes office. So, he did better than expected. I thought Schroeder ran a good race, but this is a gerrymandered district. The Warren County part of the district kind of just makes it almost impossible for a Democrat to win there. If you added up the turnout from Hamilton County in both congressional districts that are there, Democrats would easily take a district there. The districts will be redrawn, after the census is released, and so we'll see whether he runs again.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be a good story for another day, the redistricting. So let's talk about the Hamilton County. What happened at the courthouse?
So, when we talked about this story back in September, we kind of we looked and see, could there be a sweep of Hamilton County offices, including the judicial branch? And what happened was almost a sweep. The Democrats took control of the Common Pleas Court, which is, any kind of crime that you hear about on the news is going to end up being before that court. Car thefts, murders, whatever. Major crimes are going to be before the Common Pleas Court, and so they took a majority there, which was 6 of the 8 races there. I know that was a very big goal of theirs, and it looks like they have met it. That's going to be a significant impact because they lost the prosecutor's race, but they have really kind of established a beachhead there. They have the clerk of courts, of course, with Avtab Pureval, and now they have most of the judges there. They also took a majority on the appellate court. There was one race for the appellate court between Ginger Bach and Russell Mock. Ginger Bach was the Democrat. She won that race. I know that the Democrats are very happy about this because they have put a lot of effort into winning judicial races over the years. They, what they want their voters to do is to vote all the way down the ballot, which they didn't used to do. Right. And remember, these judge races, they don't have party affiliation next to them. So you have to go into the voting booth knowing which ones are D's and which ones are R's. And so the Democrats feel that they've effectively gotten that across.
Last question for you. Any other races that you were watching that you think are going to be important for Hamilton County?
Yeah, the prosecutor's race was a big one. The Republicans put all of their chips into winning this race, and they won it. So, I think I wrote on Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, very early Wednesday morning, that this could have been far worse for the Republicans because they they really wanted to keep Joe Deters in the prosecutor's office, and they did. The impact of that is, it's kind of unknown. There's been rumors for a long time that Joe Deters was looking for, kind of an exit path. And so They now have won that for another 4 years. If he decides to leave, the Republicans can appoint his replacement. So we'll see if that happens. There's been a lot of speculation that Greg Hartman might be the guy to do that, the former county commissioner. So we will wait and see. Could be something that happens in a couple of years. Could be something that happens in 3.5 years. So we'll see.
Well, you had a great story a couple weeks ago on this whole thing, and I felt personally very prepared to kind of wade into these results, kind of knowing a lot more about what was happening. There were a couple surprises for me as well, but I do think this is the story that you wrote said it, and it's, we've finally hit this seismic shift in Hamilton County from R to D with a few exceptions. So we'll have to see how that starts playing out, and I'm sure you'll be covering it. But thank you very much for being here, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
And thank you, Rob and Chris. Well, the other big story, women taking over leadership positions in Hamilton County. All 3 Hamilton County commissioners are women. And Charmaine McGuffey is not only the first woman to be the Hamilton County sheriff, but the first openly gay sheriff in Ohio. She'll be in charge of the same department that fired her 4 years ago.
I'm going to ask them to work hard and help me make this department the best it's ever been. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask them. I have absolutely no intent on anything that even shows of retaliate, that even is that. It is absolutely not something I've thought about. That's not me. I'm not a vindictive person.
McGuffey filed a wrongful termination suit over that firing, saying it was discrimination for being a lesbian. She said today she will still move forward with that suit. Still to come on First Financial BizBeat, an awakening in corporate America and how a 100-year-old charity is performing better during a worldwide pandemic. This summer, civil unrest appears to be opening some eyes. It has forced companies to step back and analyze their practices. Sansaray Frazier is the head of diversity and inclusion at First Financial Bank, and she sat down with Courier publisher Jamie Smith.
Thank you, Kyla, and thank you for being with us today, Sansaray. It means a lot to us to have this important topic added to our program. If you could, can you tell me, what does diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to First Financial, and why is it important to you guys?
Well, first, Jamie, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on diversity, equity, and inclusion for First Financial Bank. These are fundamental values for our organization. Investing in our employee is part of our core tenet of our strategic intent. We believe that having mutual respect of each other, where we seek out and value differing opinions, ideas, experiences, and talents will make us stronger. It's the reason why we exist, to be woven into the communities in which we serve, understanding the needs, and providing solutions. In addition, having a diverse workforce will leverage our team's diversity from talents, people, and ideas. And with that, we'll be a great employer of choice.
That's a great answer. Can you help us understand a little bit, how do you foster a culture of diversity and inclusion in your organization?
Sure. Well, first of all, fostering and sustaining diversity and inclusion requires support. And with the support of our board of directors, our CEO, executive, and senior management teams, we will succeed. 2020 has been really a tremendous lift for all of us. With the unexpected events including the murders of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, along with other social injustices, and compounded with the pandemic, we're all experiencing a level of uncertainty and anxiety. Well, this year, Archie Brown, our CEO, made a bold and courageous approach and invited our minority associates to listening sessions. They talked, we listened. From those conversations, we identified gaps, made some immediate adjustments, and also realized that we could continue with some best practices. The sessions were so successful, we opened it to a broader group of associates and invited over 125 associates over the span of 3 months to hear what they had to share. we're heading in a great direction right now. And we've developed and created a diversity council, and we're ready to move forward for 2021 on our diversity, equity, and inclusion journey.
That's such a key, is listening, right? Just
Yes.
that word, listen. If
Listening.
we did a little more, our world would be in such a better place.
Yeah, that's a very great point, Jamie. Those are some of the actions that we took. Some other actions we took were to create a diversity, equity, and inclusion working group, which helps us to really implement our strategic plan. Listening, oh my goodness, how key is that, where you bring in your leaders and be open to having conversations with their employees to sit down, clear their calendars, and truly listen genuinely. And of course, lastly, is developing and enhancing relationships within your community. Being a partner with community organizations, also workforce programs, and most specifically, colleges and universities, including HBCUs.
But how do you guys seek diverse talent and ensure that you have a balanced pool during that hiring process? How do you find those candidates and make sure that equity is there?
Sure, great question, Jamie. First, let me just say this. We don't have all the answers. What we did do is make a commitment in 2019 by partnering with Central State University and participated in their Summer Banking Institute program. We invited 10 students to intern with First Financial Bank and partnered them with 9 lines of businesses. It was a tremendous lift because it was our first time bringing so many students at one time, but it was a tremendous success, great experiences on both sides. Our focus with the internship program is that we also look forward to convert an intern into an employee.
You know what? I think you guys are taking so many positive steps, and I hope if we can just have a handful of people that hear this interview today can take some steps similar, that our community is going to be in a better place. But I
Absolutely.
would love to have you back on again and to go into a little bit deeper about some of the success steps you found and some advice that we could give. But thank you
I would love to.
with us today. We appreciate
Thank you so much.
and appreciate First Financial Bank.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for having me. Have
Absolutely.
a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Very important insight there. And we are back with more after the break. For a century, Easter Seals has been spearheading services for those living with disabilities. But that's just the tip of the iceberg for the nonprofit. CEO Pam Green talked about some of their newest ventures with First Financial's Ilaria Rollins.
Pam, I'm really excited to talk with you today. Can you tell us a little bit about Easter Seals?
Sure. Easter Seals is a Cincinnati organization. We've been around for about 50 years here in Cincinnati, more than 100 years nationally. And our mission is to change the way the world views and defines disability by making profound and positive differences in lives every day. And in greater Cincinnati, we do that by focusing on employment and specifically removing barriers to employment for people with disabilities, for our area veterans, and for people who are economically disadvantaged.
With Veterans Day coming up, some key timing, can you tell us a little bit about the work Easter Seals does with veterans and employment?
Absolutely, absolutely. So interestingly enough, a lot of folks don't think about Easter Seals when they think about veterans serving organizations, but we've actually been serving our country's veterans since World War II, when veterans with disabilities came home and Easter Seals deployed their team of therapists to do rehab work. And so, like I said, here in Cincinnati, we focus on employment. And so whether it's helping a veteran to translate the skills that they learned in the military to what that looks like in a civilian workforce, to helping them to get some experience so that they can move on to another position, or if it's just helping them navigate the myriad resources that are out there available for them, Easter Seals is a great provider of employment supports to people with disabilities. We started our veteran employment program in 2012 as we started to see soldiers coming back from the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. And Ilaria, I have to tell you, it's been really amazing since the pandemic started. The number of veterans that we've placed in employment has increased by about 30%. So we're placing, I think since the pandemic started in March, we've been placing an average of 2 vets a week into employment. So it's been great. I have this theory that it's our country's in a crisis because of this pandemic. And so veterans are like, I got to get to work. I got to help. And so it's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful thing to see.
It's awesome to be able to see those impacts and the direct impact being made. I mean, it's so profound.
Absolutely.
So tell us where people can find more information about Easter Seals, programs available, and how to give.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, of course, at our website, which is www.eastersealsgc.org. And you can follow us on social media, which is at Easter Seals. And obviously, we're always looking for ways to engage the community in supporting the work that we do. Our veterans program, we decided when we started it up that a lot of times government-funded programs for veterans come with a lot of restrictions around eligibility and discharge status and just a lot of stuff. And so we decided when we were starting up our program that we were going to consider a veteran as anybody that signed up to give their life for their country, regardless of eligibility and disability status. And so to do that, we rely for 70% of our program funding comes from philanthropic contributions. And this year, we normally do a big event every year for our veterans program, but with COVID this year, we weren't able to do that. So we're trying to make up some of those things and still raise the support that we need to help vets placed in employment. So.
Well, thank you so much, Pam, for spending time talking with me today. I really enjoyed hearing more about Easter Seals.
Thank you, Ilaria. I so appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kyla. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Ilaria, and thank you for joining us for First Financial Biz Beat. We'll be back on our regular home, Local 12, next week at noon. I'm Kyla Woods. Have a wonderful and safe weekend.